But now we've got the 4th of July, and your president, Mr. Trump, is going to have this big celebration down at the National Mall. He's out there someplace in Oregon, I think, today, celebrating the 4th of July. He is putting everybody to the test to determine who's going to be more patriotic than him, or what, setting the standard for patriotism. But, African Americans were involved in the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. You mentioned every war in this country. We have shown our loyalty, sometimes definitely to our own detriment, to this country. And the 4th of July sort of brings that to our attention. And one individual who was very outspoken about that was the inimitable man that's right behind me right here, Mr. Frederick Douglass. And we are really honored to have right now Mr. Nathan Richardson, who is a poet, author, and Frederick Douglass historian and reenactor. And he's on his way to Washington, D.C. To deliver the Frederick Douglass speech at the Lincoln Park, at the Lincoln statue in Southeast D.C. Or is that Northeast? Is it Northeast, Mr. Richardson?
It's Southeast.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I know that's the place where Mary McLeod Bethune's statue is as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
they're facing each other. Yes.
Exactly. So welcome to the show. I know you're on the road, so thanks for pulling over and having this conversation with us.
Thank you. I'm very honored. Anytime I'm able to voice Frederick Douglass through the Black press is just a manifestation of history. Him being the editor and publisher of the North Star newspaper. So I was looking at the history of your newspaper, and you are pretty much like Rosetta Douglass Sprague. Your father started the newspaper, and you're continuing on, and so did Rosetta, his daughter.
Oh, so she did carry it because he had sons. I think I read that, and it inspired me so much because he had two sons, right? But I think
He
the
had
daughter
three
is the
sons.
three sons, but the daughter is the one
Yeah.
that carried the banner. But it didn't last, what maybe another couple years or something?
About 3 years, and then he
Yeah.
changed the title from the North Star to the Douglass Papers, and then but he had so much stuff going on. It was hard to run a newspaper. You
I
have to be,
know.
as you probably know, you have to be committed to the newspaper.
No question, or else we wouldn't be here. So how
Yes.
did you? Where did this? I don't want to. What would I call it? This following, this admiration that you have for Douglass. Where did that come from? Where did it start?
Well, I've always been a student of history,
Mm-hmm.
more so a student of literature and poetry. I got my start as a poet. I spent, I've been a poet since I was a teenager. I've done a lot of spoken word. I've connected with spoken word poets all over the country, all over the world for that matter. And I came to Douglas through that path, through poetry. When someone asked me or suggested that I take on the role of portraying an ancestor, they didn't say Douglas. They just said portray somebody. There's not a lot of black men portraying our ancestors, and so I started looking at various ones: Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and of course I already have this beard here. So
Yes.
I the first thing that caught my attention was the appearance, and then when I started reading Douglas's words, I realized how poetic he was, and how I was able to actually hear his voice, hear his tone, hear his pace, and then that's how I fell into the role of Frederick Douglass.
And so this role has taken you, I guess, all across the country. And I don't know if you've been outside of the country, but I know it's taken you a lot of places to when people wanted to invite Douglas to events. Where have you traveled?
I've traveled all over the United States: New York, California, Oregon, Utah, Texas. I spent a lot of time up in New York and Rochester in that area because,
Hmm.
of course, he lived there for about 20 years. So it's just unlimited the places that I have been. And I haven't been outside of the country doing Douglas, but I have certainly performed for international audiences. As a matter of fact, next week I will be doing a Zoom performance at the White House Visitor Center,
Mm.
and there will be 6 countries viewing that Zoom performance. So Douglas is a very popular man in this modern era.
No question. And I remember because, of course, one of my sheroes was Ida B. Wells, who
Yes,
admired Douglas. And I've read a couple of her autobiographies and been a little, felt like she did in some ways, a little disappointed when Douglas was not as supportive of particularly her anti-lynching efforts, according to one biography now. I mean, she left the country, went to Europe, and it was trying to get him to financially support her. And I guess he said, look, you made that trip on your own, but uh,
right.
so she had to make
Well,
her way back.
when we're
But she was like, he was a father figure for her.
sure. Well, I tell you, it's interesting, even in that time and in the modern era as well. I was just here in D.C. last Friday, in which I was there and I did the speech he did at the inauguration of that monument, the Emancipation Monument. And he certainly was not there last Friday to defend the monument because even in his time, he did not think the monument appropriately represented the black man. He thought that the black man should be standing. He said that Lincoln put him on equal footing. He looked him straight in the eye, and so he thought that Archer Alexander should be standing. But Douglas is a nuanced person, just as Ida B. Wells was a nuanced person. And so when we are looking at these characters, uh, we have to understand that they were complex individuals
Right,
and they
right.
had contradictions. And so that's one of the things, it's somewhat of a Hippocratic oath that we as enactors promise to do is to show the characters in their strengths and their flaws, because it's important if we're going to have people in the modern era, we're going to have children, young people follow in their footsteps. Uh, they have to understand that they were flawed people, and if you have flaws, you can still become somebody dynamic and great that can serve the country.
Your John Muller, a gentleman who we all know, who also admires Douglas, is we're going to get hopefully we'll get Mr. Richardson back. But John Muller is a young man from the DC, actually a native Washingtonian, who is another great admirer of Douglas, and coordinated the event, and is coordinating the event this evening at the memorial, at the statue. But you're
Yes,
not there really to debate. I saw an interesting video between you and Don Folden, who does these Black History tours in DC,
yes.
debating about that statue. But you're not there really tonight to talk about that. You're going to uh, do Douglas's Fourth of July speech. Is that
Fourth of
correct?
July speech, yes.
Can you just give us a sense of what Douglas's feelings were about the Fourth of July?
He was saying uh, that this nation, and it's very pathetic that the same things he said in that speech in 1852 are true today, that America has some serious problems.
Mhm.
But that should not cause us to divest ourselves from the Constitution, because the Constitution is actually that thing that guarantees our liberties. So he wrote a scathing speech about those people who claim the virtue, and he's quoting here Stephen Smith, who said, "Men seldom eulogize the fame and virtues of their forefathers without leaving out some folly or wickedness of their own."
Mm.
So he wants you to contemplate the holiday. He's not saying to celebrate it or not celebrate it, but contemplate the meaning thereof of what the 4th of July, what liberty means. And don't just tell us what your forefathers did. What have you contributed to society to make this a more perfect union? And if you have detracted from making this a more perfect union, then you are part of the problem.
Interesting. Interesting. So, what time will you be at the park this afternoon?
It'll be I'm gonna be there beforehand talking to people out of character. I'll be kind of transitioning, and then we're actually going to get started at about 6:30.
6:30. Okay. And
Hmm.
last week there were other reenactors there as well. It's so exciting to see the number of people that we have in the DC area. But who do you know who's going to be joining you tonight?
Well, last week we had Freed there, who are let's see, female reenactors of distinction were there. Those women were marvelous. You know, they're senior sisters, and it was so great to see them out, risking their lives really for in the pandemic. Today there will be poets there. We have a call out to hear what the poets have to say. We hope some young people are going to come out and speak their truth. Uh, we wouldn't be righteous if we didn't allow the youth of America to speak their truth about what's happening. The future belongs to them, and so that's. And then we have, of course, Mr. John O'Brien, who's the president of the Lincoln Group of D.C., and
Mhm.
some others are going to be there as well today.
You know that it saddens me because several years ago, the Washington Informer initiated something called the every February we did our African American Heritage Tour, and
Yes.
it's amazing how that tour took on because when we first started, I think we had maybe about 100 people that went with us, and it grew to about
Right.
300 people. Our plan was to
Yeah.
come to Richmond this
Yeah.
year
Right.
to take in February. Well, actually, it's been April. We've moved it because it can be so cold in February, but it can still be cold in April as well.
Yeah.
But we've been all over. We went out to Harriet Tubman Memorial in Eastern Shore and really talked a lot about Douglas while we were there.
Hmm. They were
Annapolis,
both born on the
Baltimore.
Eastern Shore. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So we hope to bring that back, or else we might have to come up with some type of virtual tour. I might have to call you on that, see how we
Oh
can make
yeah.
that happen. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so, is there anything about Douglas that you learned and that really surprised you about this man that you've decided to become as a reenactor?
I tell you, I actually have a lot in common with Douglas. I'm credited to with being, as some people say, one of the best, and I think it's because I actually, unbeknownst to me, was living a life a lot like Douglas before I became Douglas. In that I am pretty much a self-made man as far as poetry, as literature. I'm a published author. I teach in universities, etc., but I have no letters. And so I came to Douglas in the same way that he came to his notoriety, and so I have that kind of respect with for who Douglas was. And so the main thing that I try to do in portraying Frederick Douglass is try not to serve any particular agenda, especially in this day and time. Everybody is looking through or hearing what Douglas says from their own prism. And so whenever I'm saying something or whenever Frederick Douglass is saying something, they are interpreting what he says in a completely different manner. That was definitely true last Friday,
Hmm.
that the videos that came out of that protest, the all the news coverage was of a particular persuasion or a particular point of view. And me being there, standing in Douglas' shoes, I saw the contrast of those interpretations.
Hmm.
And in a lot of cases, we're actually saying the same thing. The young lady that was shouting in my face and was shouting back and forth with the elder gentleman, they were saying the same things. They were just talking past one another.
Yeah.
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 And what Douglas was able to do that nobody else was able to do is just simply acknowledge their right to say these monuments must come down,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So
Exactly.
that's the difference. Yeah.
So we've got about a little less than a minute left. If I do you have a word from Mr. Douglas for us that we can share in about 30 seconds or so, as it relates to where we are right now? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
Oh, well, quotes come to mind. I'm a man of quotes. I know Douglas says, power concedes nothing without a demand. So the young people in America are definitely standing up. They're demanding. They're saying, power, come along. The other thing that for people who are criticizing the protesters, and even for that matter, the looters, the rioters, he said that the only thing worse uh, than rebellion is the thing that causes rebellion. So if you're upset
interesting.
about what's going on, you should be upset about the thing that caused the rebellion that you're seeing in the country today. So I think those are the two most powerful quotes that I can come up with right off the top of my head.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Norman. Thank you so much, Mr. Richardson, for being with us for these couple of minutes. I know you're on the road. We hope that you make it here safely, and I hope to see you in a few hours over at Lincoln Park in Southeast DC this evening.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. See
Bye
you
bye.
then. Thank you so much.